Welcome back, guys, to the up and down matches. I am Wolf. With me is Kaldor, and it's time for our winners to duel here.
Exactly, it's time for our Protoss versus Zerg. HyuN against Mana is the next game, and the map is actually Antigua Shipyard.
Yep. And here is our current score so far. You can see how things stack up in our 5-player group. So obviously the leaders here just being Mana and HyuN, who will be, you know, one of them is going to come out looking like Keen right now with a 1-1 because you cannot have 2 winners in the match.
Exactly. It's a little bit too early, of course, to have a closer look at the group. We need more games before we can actually talk about the situation of the players in depth. But at this point, for both of them, a win would be, of course, great. With a 2-0 lead in the group, you're pretty much guaranteed that you will either advance or at least end up in some kind of tie situation.
Right. Well, here is Antigua Shipyard as our map. And see what Mana's got prepared here up against HyuN. HyuN is obviously a very great Zerg player, and Legend is asking him to smile. And so he complied. He's doing that.
Yeah, actually, the funniest thing today was we took the pictures. Every single time when you see the player overview and you see the pictures of the players, that's what we did with Mana today. We went to the studio like 3 hours early to take them. And it was so funny, Mana just trying to smile. He's a huge troll, but every time he takes a picture, he goes for like one of these scary faces. So he tried like 5 times until they had a smile they were happy with. It looked just so awkward.
That is really funny. Pulling a Braddock there maybe, but we'll see what happens on Antigua Shipyard. The map is loading. This is the up and down matches here for the GSL Season 4 for 2012. That was a sick zoom in, by the way. Oh my god.
And this on screen is a sick player, a sick Zerg player. Starting at the right side on Antigua Shipyard, we have him starting for TSL. It is
TSL HyuN.
25 years old, and a great Zerg player.
Yep.
He hasn't reached his peak yet. He wants to go to more offline tournaments, especially abroad. To the left side starts his opponent, the Protoss player from Poland, and in Korea for of the 3 weeks. It is
Mana.
You know, one of the disadvantages that Mana has here is that he does not like to eat kimchi, and this can actually really make you very unhealthy in Korea.
It's actually so funny because I tried to introduce him to a lot of Korean food when he first came here, and of course he loves Korean barbecue, he loves bulgogi. The Koreans, sorry, not the Koreans, the Polish guys, they eat bulgogi 3 times a day right now, and it's actually funny. That's the only thing they eat. He doesn't like soups, not at all. So he doesn't eat any kind of budae-jjigae or kimchi jjigae or whatsoever. Soups is something that he does not like.
Well, that can be quite unfortunate. There has to be a soup that he likes, but
nah, I tried. Believe me, there's
I
nothing.
bet you did, man, because that's quite important to live
The only thing that they eat is basically donkasu and bulgogi. Okay. That's the only thing that they really love. But yeah, talking a little bit about the map and about what they have planned. I mean, of course, living in the same house as Mana, I can talk a little bit more about what he's going to do. This is a map that at first he thought that he might go for some kind of normal Colossus timing, but on the other hand, one of the strongest strategies on this map is actually the Immortal push, trying to get the position at the high ground. We talked about this at WCS for a long time. So this is what Mana wanted to do here. He wanted to go for a build where he tries to get position on the high ground and go for an Immortal strategy.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what, you know, sometimes things change in game, but I think that he's told you that, and that's probably what we can expect to see from him.
You're right with what you just said. Things can change. Depending on what he scouts, he will stay flexible with it. He just thought earlier that this might be his best shot, but of course he practiced a lot, and he did not only practice this build, but several ones. So if the game gives him a reason to change his strategy, then he will definitely do it. But he expects HyuN to be aggressive in the mid-game. He knows that HyuN is also a player that really loves to go for this drop play with roaches, something that we talked about when we mentioned the GSL Code A matches that HyuN played when he had this problem against Genius that he forgot the drop upgrade.
Yeah.
And Mana, the only thing that Mana was really wondering about was how to open the game. If you would open with a Forge first or actually with a Gateway first. and we saw him opening up with Nexus into Forge.
And this is going to be a problem actually that he went Gateway before Cannon, and this means the Ling will actually be able to stay alive in his base for quite some time.
The Ling was not his biggest problem. What he was really concerned about was that HyuN would go for an aggressive build and try to sneak more than only one Zergling in his main base, because Mana is one of these players that is really uncomfortable with positioning the wall at the bottom of the ramp. We see him that he's currently using the bigger wall to wall off. So he talked to Naniwa in length about it, and Naniwa in the end just told him, okay, well, listen, what is the build, what is the opening that you are more comfortable with? And Mana immediately said, okay, Forge Expand is definitely what I love more than going for the Gateway. And Naniwa just told him, okay, if you didn't really practice it hard, then just stick with your play and stick with what you're comfortable with, and everything else will solve itself out later.
Okay, well, this Ling is going to become a problem. I mean, he's already forced to pull one probe for it, which is not too much lost, but the Ling may see his tech of choice. Obviously, +1 is being researched right now, and he does, make a second Zealot, actually cancel that. But if, as long as he runs this Ling around, the Zealot will not kill it, and oh wow, almost trapping it there. But this is so annoying for Mana, his tech may be delayed as a result of this.
Yeah.
And the probe is actually going to, on the other hand, be able to sneak into the main. So this is quite useful. He's going to be able to see no gases and feel completely comfortable as a result.
I mean, for HyuN, it's of course now a position where he knows exactly that the Immortal push or just timing might come his way. It's really hard for a Protoss player to get a third base here. Usually you move out very late to get your third because it's so hard to hold. So most Protoss players will go for a 2-base timing. And this is something that HyuN will expect. So there are different timings that a Protoss player can use. You can go for a really gateway heavy play, like 7 gates for example. You can go for the Immortal push backed up by gateways. You have the Blink Stalker timing. But the strongest one of all of these is probably still the Immortal push. So HyuN will just try to spread his creep at the rocks. He will always have a good look at the rocks, because the key to defending against this is just to make sure that the Protoss player is never able to get onto the high ground.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to determine, because if they do, then they can control that fight. I think, with the timing of Lair here for HyuN, he's just going to be playing this straight up. We'll see if he adds the Roach Warren. Did he actually already add that? Okay, he did. I totally missed that. That was kind of silly of me. But hey, he's going for the extremely normal opening. He's getting Link speed here as well. And Mana is... He's got the potential to do a lot of damage. This is a great map for pushes like this, if he decides to commit to it. This is another map where you can just fall back and take the third. But I've watched a lot of Mana's play overseas, but this is not one strategy I've seen him do against a Zerg player before.
The problem with Mana is that this was a matchup where he was really uncomfortable with. Especially a big problem that he has is that he's very perceptible against Zergling run-bys. He has a problem with warping the Zealots in and positioning them in the wall in time, so Zergling run-bys oftentimes cost him the game in the past, and do so still in Korea. But he has a very good win ratio against the Zergs in Korea. It seems like the style that the Zergs in Korea use is better for him than the European Zergs. So he actually said to me in person that he thinks that for his style, the Korean play of Zerg is way worse than what the Europeans do. So he's a little bit more comfortable in this matchup. On the other hand, the same is true for HyuN. He's a great player in this matchup, and he likes to play against Protoss, prefers it much over playing a Terran player, for example. So this is just two players who have not only won their first map, but at the same time also feel really comfortable in the matchup that they currently play.
Yeah, by the way, HyuN did not see the gateways, which is so critical. Yeah, he saw the Immortal, he saw the Robo, but he actually could have had a free scout of everything if he went up into the main. And he's actually being the one who's aggressive, which is kind of funny. And he could catch Mana a little bit here, just depends on how quickly he reacts.
It actually looks like Mana is toying around with the idea of getting a third base here. This is really something that I didn't expect.
Well, especially after he added all those gateways, usually you add those as a wall at your third, and he's going to face this pressure here. Several force fields used already, and HyuN is just not allowing him to do what he wanted.
And you can already see that Mana used a force field to secure his ramp, so he did not leave a Zealot behind in order to make sure that he has a full wall. And this is a problem that he had in the past. And one other thing that we should mention here, we talked a little bit about how he's nervous playing here in Korea. Oh, hold that thought, here comes another attack by HyuN, putting on the pressure and trying to take down one of the Immortals early on in the game, but Mana so far shielding them very well.
Yeah, and they all remain alive. They're going to do the extra damage here. The Roaches still stream through. He's going to take out some sentries, but at the end of the day, he only gets one Immortal. The second Immortal, he pulls it back, but it still gets targeted. But a pretty good trade for Mana overall. He needs to figure out what he wants to do next now, though. There's already creep spread at his third base. He doesn't have the Immortal count he needs to push out anymore, and HyuN is actually just rallying more and more units across the map.
Exactly. The Immortal push is something that is definitely out of the question at this point in time. HyuN with a lot more aggression than Mana expected here, so he can't move out. And this is exactly what HyuN wants to prevent that there is going to be some kind of Immortal attack. And what I was about to say earlier, Mana told me after the game, we talked a little bit about before this match, that he was shaking in the booth when he was playing his first game. Throughout the entire match against Keen, his hands were shaking and he's really, really nervous right now. But of course, winning the first map gave him a lot of confidence. But HyuN is now playing a very strong match here. And Mana has to be very, very careful.
Yeah, he does. This aggression that HyuN is putting on here has caught him a little bit by surprise, it appears. Now he's ready to set up that wall at the third base over the ramp. He's moving out with his units again, and his sentry count is not low. Despite the fact that he faced that early pressure, he kept most of his sentries alive. Now he's got to be careful with how he engages this, but at the same time, I think he's in a great position. He's going to force HyuN back here. A few Lings do deny the Nexus once more and are going to start to work on these pylons. Mana actually is going to have to send some units home to deal with this, or he's going to actually find himself supply blocked.
And HyuN is really building a lot of Zerglings right now. This is what he relies on. Mana is supply blocked for just a few seconds, already started a few pylons before their pylon was taken down by the Zerglings. And now he's trying to push in here. He's trying to make this push work after all. He faked the third a little bit, but he's going to move in right now.
And this is going to be pretty tough for HyuN to hold because his opponent has built the perfect composition. He's going to go for the counterattack. He doesn't want to fight this army straight up. And so many cannons being made by Mana right now. He's got sentries, but the ramp, you said this is a problem. And oh my god, that was so close.
The Zealot actually in position, not on hold position though, exactly the problem that we had. And I have the permission to slap Mana if that happens, so he will be in trouble later.
Well, here they come.
But now he's in trouble as well. The sentry's not able to shield this. He retreats into the main base, a good decision. He knew that HyuN would go for this. He said that HyuN will definitely not try to fight his army, but will go for the run by, and now controlling the stroke point is the best decision, the best shot that Mana has at taking this game. Sacking the natural, such a great decision here.
Yeah, it was great, and he's got so many forces available in the ramp, but that was close. He loses 2 sentries there, and that's a lot less force energy to have, but he should have enough to continue to hold. He's got the Warp Prism with this army, which is very critical, but there's so many spines at the top of the ramp. In total, there are 11 spine crawlers, the 11th one finishing up right now.
Yeah, of course, Mana has to be a little bit careful. If he plays with his Warp Prism, he can warp into the base of his opponent and make this work, but it's going to be tough.
It is going to be very tough. With all those spine crawlers, you know, he could try to circumvent them by going for a few stalkers to the back, but this is a really scary army he's facing still, even with the Force Shields and the Immortals. He's got to be careful, and you know, it's funny because HyuN is now stuck on a base that he can't really use because it's way oversaturated. He's got a bunch of spine crawlers, but at the same time, Mana is starting to run low on minerals in his main as well.
And funny as it is, we don't have gas in the main base of HyuN. He didn't take a single extractor, so he does not mind gas at all. Here comes the fight in the middle of the map, though. The force fields occasion and divert the few roaches for a little bit, but at the same time, the Zerglings close the distance. Are the Immortals able to survive long enough to deal with the roaches?
He needs to target them a little bit better. He starts to do it now, but they were firing at Lings for a little bit, and now HyuN with the complete surround and more Lings coming through. I don't know if he's actually going to be able to hold this. The Immortal is picked up, but it looks like HyuN has too much. He does not have the ability to blink these stalkers back. He's trying to rescue the Immortal, but Mana down in supply now. His Cybernetics core just being remade, and as soon as that's done, he's going to use the bank he has. Production a problem for him 2 games in a row.
And HyuN already completed the drop play, so he has currently drop and speed for the Overlords. He can put that to use. Mana losing his entire force here, and HyuN once again on the move, trying to establish another base, both of them being on one base only. This game is already insane, and it's just getting crazier by the minute.
HyuN definitely in the better position with the army he has to threaten Mana when he tries to move out, and he's got double expansion going up, but 5 more sentries warping in for Mana, and he can be aggressive once his Immortal count gets back up, because there's no transition obviously for HyuN right now. He has not made the Infestation Pit yet, so the Immortals are still just as strong as they once were.
And HyuN still doesn't have gas in his main base. He doesn't have any gas income.
He's making only Lings.
He's relying on Zerglings only at this point in time. Also, of course, because his Roach Warren was killed at the natural. It was positioned at the low ground, and he lost it. But he has 600 gas banked up. That's all that he can rely on to now.
And he is sending a lot of units down to the bottom right. It looks like that may be his drop pickup location, or perhaps he expected something weird was happening, but as a result, he spots Warp Prism, moves his queens back, and Mana's drop here is going to have to be cancelled. There's no way to actually make this work. There's way too many units in position, plus the queens.
Yeah, the Zergling's definitely a huge issue here, and Mana trying to go for the Twilight Council. Ideal for him would, of course, to have Storms against the Zergling, but that's a long way down the road. Upgrades more important at this point in time. And now Mana is still scouting with the Warp Prism. I think he saw already that we have the Overlord speed, but he does not know about the drop play just yet. He's expecting it though.
Yeah, this is something that HyuN is known for. And I mean, obviously this is an unusual game that we're seeing right now, but it is something he may decide to fall back on. The upgrades for the ground units of the Protoss Armory at 1-1, whereas HyuN has no upgrades for his units just yet. He had the Evolution Chamber, but he just he wasn't able to use it.
And we actually have now not only the Burrow upgrade, but also the tunneling clause for HyuN. Mana doesn't have an observer. He has rebuilt the Robo, but he needs an observer if he wants to deal with it. At this point, Mana has no detection.
Yeah, this is going to become a problem for him potentially here, but his Immortal count as a result is so high. He's actually going up to his 5th Immortal right now. And that's so many against an army that does not have Infestors. Here we go. Going to trap a Roach here, take it out. Burrow movement is not done yet, and Mana follows with the Warp Prism saying, well, there's no way you can hit this. I'm just going to spot your army. But he may realize the threat is here. He does not have an Observer, and will likely make one after this 5th Immortal.
He already has another cannon in production, so this will at least give him a little bit of detection. But yes, he needs an Observer here in order to make sure that he knows about his opponent's movements, as well as, of course, the Burrow.
Another concern is that he doesn't have a wall, because he lost his initial wall, and this means that if he moves out at all, and HyuN wants to, he can run by all the way into the natural, in the main base, whatever he wants.
That's, by the way, the Observer. He has one now and is transitioning into Colossi. 50 supply, that's the lead for HyuN. And the Zerg player now on 3 bases, but he still has the macro hedge. Still no gas in his main base, which is just odd.
Yeah, that is quite odd, but he's not quite using it yet. There's the drop play being researched here, and so far, so good as a transition for both players. Neither player overextending themselves and losing units. They're just kind of transitioning into the point in the game we would have about 8 minutes ago.
Actually, the drop upgrade has just now been started.
Yeah, he just started it.
I think he lost... He went for the double drop earlier, but I think the hatch was killed before the drop play was actually completed. I'm so sorry. I thought he completed it before the hatch was killed.
Well, don't be sorry.
I actually thought he started both in the main base.
I thought that he had them both started as well, but I thought perhaps he canceled it, or I just had misread it, but it's really late. Now he's still got the ability to use it later on here. Warp Prism is going to be a slight annoyance. You can see that HyuN is trying to search and find it. Now he sees it, and he may actually assassinate this queen. There's no way for it to run. He's going to grab it. Oh.
He tried to, but nice Burrow.
Yeah.
Really, really well done.
Not enough people will do that, actually, against this type of Zealot play.
But still, this drop play weirds me out a little bit. I did not see where exactly he researched it, because if it was actually researched in the main base, then he canceled it on purpose. So that's something that I'm really interested in. Was it a cancel that he purposefully did, or was it actually just Mana killing the hatch at the natural and therefore cancelling it?
I may have the opinion that it was a cancel because he didn't have the Roach Warren to continue Roach production, and he was like, well, this is too risky for me to commit to this right now. I want the resources for something else.
Be it as it may, now it's completed. Now he can start his attacks. He is on this way to get +1 for his Zerglings too. But we have the first Colossus being built, and the extended thermal lance is halfway done. Finally, the creep is being assassinated.
Yep.
The Warp Prism being put to some good use.
Blink is not ready for this drop, so he's going to have a long way to walk. He's going to have to walk past a lot of gateways. He has no idea this is coming. He's completely blindsided. Now he's moving into the main base, but the drops, they are unloading. He has to defend from 2 fronts. He has no wall.
He splits his army though, and he splits it well, but is he really able to take down the force in his main before his production skill? That's the main question right now. The second Colossus just leaves the base, is trying to escape. The Roach is closing the distance, not able to take it down. Well played, good force field here, saving the Colossus.
Range does not finish though. He takes out extended thermal lance, and he could potentially get this blink research shut down, but he's not targeting it. In fact, he's going to go ahead and pick up here and move out. Dropping on top of that Colossus, he really wants it. A pretty strange choice by HyuN, and he does not actually even get the Colossus, so a few Roaches used there. And now Mana is starting to stabilize a little bit, as he did not really take damage on the right side. The problem is he's lost some production, and he's supply blocked.
He lost the core as well. He lost production, he lost the core. There's Zerglings still to the top left. Mana is at this point supply blocked. HyuN, on the other hand, lost a lot of resources here. He lost way more resources than his opponent. And now here come the Stalkers trying to actually close the distance with the Overlords and take them down. But HyuN not supply blocked. Not a bit, and now Mana has to restart his production. But if you talk about the resource loss in general, Mana is still in a better position. The problem is, though, that HyuN has such a great income right now that it doesn't really matter all that much to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's not concerned about the slice. And Mana, I mean, he's doing a little harassment techniques, but every time HyuN burrows, he pulls away. And if you need an observer with your Zealot drop, it just becomes useless.
He just forces Mana into a defensive position over and over again, while he takes the 4th base, saturates it now, and is moving onto the map, has the creep spread, and is once again starting his drop play. So Mana is really in an uncomfortable position. He has this huge bank, but he can't use it up to the point where he finally has the pylons. And he didn't start enough pylons. He can't use his bank.
You're absolutely right, man. And he gets a good blink here, but the concern is going to be the next one. He has to get back into the main base. He only has a few gates here this time, so this drop is not going to be as critical. But it's buying HyuN, a lot of time to do other things at home. Oddly enough, still no transition, and the roach is coming from both sides, but it's just not quite enough. But he draws Mana back, drops creep in the main, kills more and more pylons, and Mana has basically not been able to make units for the past 3 or 4 minutes.
And Mana is not building enough pylons. He didn't do that in the last minutes, as you already mentioned, but right now he's only building 2 of them. He needs way more.
A lot more. He needs to be making like 8 pylons
at
right
least.
Now. And he's just going to face the drop, escaping again.
Ah, well done. Taking down 1 Overlord, taking down 2.
HyuN just non-stop with the aggression, but no transition in sight. Still no mention of an infestation pit.
We've seen Lenok die like this.
Yeah, we have, man. And the longer you pull this off, those Protoss upgrades, if they come back, if he starts to get that production finally steady, then you can be in a lot of trouble as the Immortal count starts to grow. He's got 6 Immortals on the map right now. He's got the Colossus to support as well.
And look at the bank that he has. Now finally he starts all these pylons that we talked about, and then he can use the bank, the minerals, and the gas that he has. Mana is not out of this game at all. He can still win this. It's of course a tough map for him to win. And HyuN so far was playing well, really great. But at this point in time, this is still a match that both of them can take.
Yeah. I want to mention, by the way, with the Warp Prism, until he's killed 15 workers, and that actually starts to add up. Obviously, most of the time his opponent has burrowed, but he hasn't been on top of it every time. He's doing a great job of picking his Zealots up here, only losing 1, and this just really keeps HyuN preoccupied.
Yeah. It really keeps him preoccupied. This is something that must annoy him at this point so hard. And this 4th base that Mana spotted, it is just such an important thing. HyuN, of course, is now nearly mined out as natural as well. And Mana has a pretty good army supply. He's at 110 with a nice composition. HyuN, of course, has the numbers, but he does not really have the quality.
Uh-oh, these Overlords are actually not dropping just yet. They're going to drop right onto a pack of 6 Immortals. This is the concern that there is with this drop play. Once the Immortal count is too high, everything dies as it spawns, essentially. And Mana is crushing this fight so far, but the Roaches are not done. The Colossus with so much damage.
It's too much, though. Mana is going to win this fight. He's crushing through everything, but the Colossus, as you already said, dies. Is it enough, though? HyuN is dropping in supply. And actually, this is so funny, because this is the one thing that Mana told me over and over again. He does not understand why Protoss players do, why Zerg players do this in the late game. And he mentioned today at dinner, actually, that he loves it if a Zerg drops on his army, that he will always win the fight. And this is exactly what we just saw.
Yeah,
HyuN might just have lost the game.
I think he has, because he still does not have Infestation Pit tech. He's not going to have anything to defend his bases, whereas Mana has set up cannons and a few Blink Stalkers in position to defend his. Even warping in a Sentry here, if he drops that Force Seal, he should be totally fine. And he's just cleaning up the bases one by one. He knows about everything. He's been scouting with his Warp Prism. And HyuN, still no transition in sight. Mana tech. HyuN didn't. He did not switch his path here. And you're right. We saw Lenok die this way. And now we're just seeing HyuN, no transition, an uncomfortable position to play out. He decided rather than transition that he's just going to keep with the drop play. And Mana stabilizes. You know, we talked about his nerves. He is not actually showing any nerves here. Complete patience. And he holds through.
And the thing is really, it's so funny to me that we really saw this drop by HyuN on top of Mana's army. He said over and over again that this is the best position for him to be in, especially when he has a big army, because his opponent will just lose way too much, will never be able to trade costs. efficient, and this is what we just saw. Mana moving in right now, catching all of those spying crawlers. He has the supply advantage with 87 to 72. He has the army supply, but there is HyuN moving into the third and sniping the Nexus.
Now this is a big problem.
This is a huge problem.
But you know, even with that, HyuN is long distance mining from the center base. He's got no money right now.
The army supply is 73 to 45 in favor of
this
Mana.
time, the Roaches cannot run. He has the Observer in position. He's got Blink. He's going to try to trap a nice attack on the Colossus. But once this army is cleaned up, HyuN is just going to die. Mana will walk over him like a doormat.
Unbelievable. You can run, but you can hide. The last Roach is going to die as well, and now the Polish Protoss player is on the move to the top right. He's trying to end this game. He has one Nexus available. He cannot build another one. He's at 150 minerals. The probe count of him is at 9. He can go for long distance mining, but at this point he just wants to end this game.
And I think he will, man. He's got all his probes and a Warp Prism, and he's going to be using those, using that Warp Prism in a possible base raid scenario. I feel he may not even know how ahead he is. He's being so cautious here, but actually the last thing that HyuN wants to do is to fight now, and he's going to catch one Roach here. It actually barely survives. Drones dying as they long distance mine here, and Mana has done it. He is going to seal the deal and take his second victory here at the Up and Downs.
The young Polish player is moving in right now with a great performance so far in the Up and Downs, probably even surprising himself. He was really self-conscious about what was going on here, really nervous up front, but now with a win against Keen and a possible win against HyuN, he would be looking at a 2-0. Moving in, even building another Observer because he wants to be super sure that he can take down borrowed units. Really well done so far. HyuN is down to 23 supply against Mana 77.
Mana is so cool and collected here in the last moments. Just sends a Stalker group big enough to take it out. GG!
Oh my god. HyuN lost and Mana with a 2-0 in his group.
Yeah, this is, you know, a lot of people were wondering how well this Polish player would do. Coming to Korea, he hasn't even been here that long, but he has already taken out two top-notch GSL players back-to-back with good preparation, and I am impressed by Mana, I have to say.
He practiced a lot. He didn't do anything else but practice the entire days. Talked a little bit to HyuN early on as well, but yeah, looking at the 2-0 here, that's something that is really, really impressive. He was really afraid that he would underperform and that people would hate him for it, and he had a lot of high expectations towards himself and was not able if he could pull it off. Now talking to his brother, of course, once again in the booth. Family is really important to him, and therefore it's such a strong thing that his brother is currently here and can help him, can just talk to him, gives him a lot of confidence.
Yeah. That is, you know, that's the type of thing that everybody needs, whether it's a coach, a brother, or a friend. I mean, you are quite known, actually, not only overseas, but in Korea for going to Naniwa's booth after his victory. And we actually are going to have Jokji up next again, and he's suffering a little bit from his match against Keen. He's going 0-1 so far in this group, needs to tie things up. And, you know, he's in a position now where he's uncomfortable because he's playing against a good player in Bomber. He's down in the group, and he's got to keep his nerves together.
When was actually the last time that a foreigner was able to succeed in the Up and Down matches? Must have been ages ago.
I don't know if has that ever happened? I think Huck may have done this once, but
I'm not quite sure.
I don't think that's happened.
I mean, guys, if you have this information, or if you could look it up we, of course, right now can't, but if you can do that, then tweet us the answer at Caldo at Proxibul, because that's something that would really, really interest me at this point.
Yeah.
Mana's looking at 2-0. He hasn't done it just yet, but things are looking pretty good. At this point, he's only facing Terran players if it doesn't come down to a weird three-way tie. So that's something that is really impressive.
It looked good for him against his first Terran opponent, Keen. Just really controlling that game, well-practiced build. And Bomber and Jokji now in the booth. I think we're going to get things started pretty soon.
They are definitely ready. We have another Terran versus Terran coming up, and of course the matches so far. Both of them lost their first match, Bomber and Jokji, down a map.
Yeah. They are the losers here so far, and we'll see what the plan is for Jokji, man. The pressure he faced against Keen was a big problem for him.
And he is now facing his opponent on Daybreak, which is our map before we head into HyuN against Keen. For HyuN, this is of course now also a position where he's on 1-1. It's exactly like Keen, and it's the map that we see after this. So for both of them, really important. But now whoever loses this Terran versus Terran is already down 2 games. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the GSL up and downs group number A. Jakchi against Bomber, Hasselbeck, Colin Wolf.